Hi, I'm Martin. I was the CTO and co-founder of Why Waste, that is now part of Upshop as under the Waste 360 umbrella. I've been working together with Joe for a year and a half, and it's a great privilege to now, in my new role as VP of Platform Experience, get to work even closer with Joe in developing this next frontier.
All right, thank you, Martin. So we're going to cover enterprise replenishment, and what we want you to walk away with are these three key points. We're going beyond the store. The reality is that there's a lot more for us to do. We believe that we've accomplished a lot within the store, but the reality is we have a lot more to accomplish, and we want to talk more about that. And we believe that that's going to unlock a tremendous amount of additional new value that you've never seen before, that ultimately we're going to go after and work on your behalf. And then as we are really at the start of our journey, we're seeking obviously partners that would help us, who want to help influence and help understand how we can make this journey happen quickly and obviously successfully with your support. So we are interested in working alongside you as we are continuing on this journey. So we want to give you a sneak peek at what we're doing so that we can make it really better together. So first I just want to start off by, this is our domain. We've talked about it earlier. The reality is that we spent 30 years perfecting it. And to steal a line from a famous Seinfeld episode, we are the masters of our domain. And so that really is something that we believe is a great platform, a foundation by which we're going to even be more successful. And so we are now launching into the stratosphere and beyond relative to the supply chain. We think that it's a great journey for us to embark on, and we do know there's a lot of complexity there, and we never shy away from complexity. So we're all in, and we're invested in this future. To just break that down a little bit more, why do we even considering this? If we have such a strong position within the store, why not stay there where we're comfortable? Well, we don't want to be comfortable. We want to be successful. We want to help. So we want to take that power and the strength of that Upshop foundation, built through the 30 years plus of us working closely with our retail partners, and then see if we can take that to the next level. The one thing that's really clear is you're going to be guaranteed we're going to have a grocery-centric focus. We're not going to build it to sell nuts and bolts. We're going to build it for grocery-centric problems and grocery-centric solutioning. So that way they're going to get a refined solution that ultimately is going to take it to the next level beyond what you might have available today in the market. We all know that waste really does start at the beginning. A lot of buying decisions made early on in the process, unfortunately, do actually become downstream waste challenges for the stores. Whether it's waste of hitting the landfill or just reductions in margins, whatever the issue is, the reality is waste reductions and elimination is core to our mission. We see complete alignment with our ability to be able to go outside the store. And then we've been hearing and listening from our retail partners today that do a lot with us already. They say, listen, we really want to do more with less. There's too many point solutions out there. The day of point solutions is gone. We should know we started from there. The reality is that we do recognize that retailers want to be able to have more comprehensive, more expansive capabilities within a small select of partners and suppliers. So we want to make sure that we're going to be on that list and that we're going to be the ones that they're going to be doing a lot more with in the future. We've also built our strength and our success on fresh and being fresh specialists. That's not going to change from this perspective. We're actually going to double down and make sure that we're bringing that perspective into the enterprise replenishment situation and ensure that we're going to be specialists in fresh here as well. We're best in fresh in store. We're going to be best in fresh across the board. And we know that fresh is complex. This is why we've started this journey a long time ago. And if you think it's complex in the store, imagine what it's like at an enterprise level. We all know this if you've been in that role. Complex buying, fresh buying is very complex. And we, again, rise to that challenge, and we will ensure that we simplify the solution and ultimately simplify the problem. So we're going to simplify, and simplify that complexity at an enterprise level. And then the one key element of fresh is losing a connection to where demand actually comes from. And ultimately, we talked about recipes and cut items and items made in the store. Those aren't the items that you buy. You're buying the ingredients, you're buying the source product. So we're going to ensure that that transformation, requirement leads all the way up through to the buying decision. So when you're getting a demand signal at the enterprise level, you have the confidence that it deals with all of the incremental needs that you have for fresh store production. And one of the things that you have to recognize is that they may not be overly material on an individual store basis, but if you roll that up to the enterprise, you're talking some pretty significant numbers. And those can be really big differences on your ability to be able to make your sales and make your margins in the end. So that's a key element of capability that you have to have confidence we will fulfill on. Another aspect that we've been hearing from our retail partners is that there's a very tenured workforce that are buying for you today. And one reference that I've had was they had 2 buyers for produce that have a combined 92 years of buying experience between them. That's a lot. And as you can imagine, it doesn't take much of a leap to realize that that's a potential walking out of the door and you have to start from scratch. So we believe that that's a core responsibility of this solution to ensure that we are going to build the institutional knowledge and the collaboration tools necessary to ensure that you're going to build that knowledge base to help support the times when they're away on vacation or they're not available, and they're much more collaborative buying solution that ultimately is going to ensure that we're going to institutionalize that knowledge in a system that's easy to access and it's going to have these supporting tools that you would expect to have. So we're going to enhance buyer productivity with built-in enhanced collaboration features and functions on top of this already successful, or its foundation of good buying decisions around good forecasts, which I'll get into. In the end, we're doing CGO for the store. We have the total store solution. You should not expect anything less from an enterprise level. We're going to take that to the next level. We're going to have prescriptive outputs that are generating to meet financial objectives. So we have very key financial objectives we're helping you meet. We want those prescriptive answers to happen at the enterprise level as well as the store level. So we're rolling that up and ensuring that you're going to get that same quality recommendation that's going to have little requirement for intervention. So you should expect the same outcomes and benefits at the enterprise level. In the end, we're talking about trying to build the single version of truth. We've all been talking about it. I've been talking about it for as long as I've been in the business. We all had this vision that I want everything to be connected. I want that forecast that's going to be a vein of truth throughout from top to bottom. So we're going to aspire and definitely meet that requirement. But we have to recognize that one of the biggest difference between buying or ordering in the store and buying for the enterprise is the timelines don't line up. You're doing things much earlier. You need longer lead times. You need that ability to have quality forecasts many, many weeks in advance of when that product actually hits the warehouse and then when it hits the actual store. You need to buy in, incorporate those lead times. And then ultimately, when you get to the store, you want to make sure that we're reconciling against whatever decisions that were made at a much earlier point of view when you get to the next day or so. When you're getting to the last mile of that decision, things may not 100% line up because we're forecasting in near real time at the store, and then we're forecasting much longer lead times at the enterprise level. So we want to make sure there's always a connection that's going to connect those two events in the total solution. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is we're going to recognize whatever decisions that were made up at the enterprise level are reconciled in the last mile of the order in the store. That means that whatever recommendations are being made are now going to be augmented with the allocation requirements that might need to change. And you're going to have intelligent allocations that determine that the right product's going to the right store that has a greater chance of moving it if you have excess. And if you have shorts, then you will know that you're going to only penalize the stores that have a better chance to absorb that lack of stock. So we're going to be intelligent on how we're going to ensure that that is going to overlay whatever the recommendations that are being made today. And then at the end, it really boils down to inventory. We need to make sure that we have full awareness of inventory, not at the warehouse, but also at the store that we have today, ensuring that that inventory is that mirror or window to truth. Because at the end of the day, that's what you have to respond to. You have inventory in the warehouse today. You got to deal with it now. You're going to have orders coming in the next day or two. You got to reconcile your requirements to that depleting inventory from the warehouse on a real-time basis. So that's how we're going to connect it all together and ensure that we have a single version of the truth. We've been talking about AI. You've been hearing AI outside of these sessions and around the world. Why are we any different? Well, the reality is we're making significant investments in AI, And we're just now at the start, at the tip of our ability to be able to take advantage of those investments. And this is just one of those opportunities we're going to have. We're taking AI to the new limits. We're taking advantage of our consolidated data. We're going to be taking advantage of the solid footprint of technology that we've built to ensure that AI is going to be responsive. It's going to be dealing with the needs on a very fluid basis, dynamic basis. We're ultimately modeling what we believe will happen many weeks in advance. And that modeling has a responsibility to be up to the minute, retrained, and then bringing in new factors, new decisions that were made in the past, learning as it goes along. So those investments are going to be definitely leveraged with this solution as we move forward. And that's something that I think is a key point to ensuring that we recognize that those investments are obviously significant, and they are something that will definitely unlock this capability quite well. So with that, I'm going to summarize how we're going to tackle this solution, and then I'm going to hand it over to Martin, and he's going to talk a little bit deeper on one of these solutions, these modules. So we're going to take a modular approach to this solution. So we're obviously recognizing that the enterprise forecasting is a key foundation that leads this whole process. So we have ventured on that. We're investing in that today. We have long-range forecasts. We have a complete store-to-enterprise view of what our demand is going to be. That is a foundational piece that will carry on. And then we're going to move into a demand planning solution where you can do what-if scenarios. We do recognize that, you know, as much as we want to replicate what happened in the past, certain things can happen, avian flu, port strikes, whatever, and your buyers are always on the nut to try to figure out, what do I need to do with this understanding of the world and relate it back to what my patterns have been in the past. So you have to be able to get into a structured workflow that helps organize their thinking, so you come with that final decision on what your needs are, and then that ability to be able to test the system on different price points, promos, or different scenarios. And we'll go through that in a little more detail with Martin's part of the session. And then from there, we're going to go right into the procurement operational side of the equation, where we have to make sure that we're bringing those requirements into a properly structured purchase order that needs to then be transmitted and shared with your vendors. Obviously, there's a lot of constraints on your supply chain. You need to bring those constraints into view, ensuring that those constraints are there to be taken advantage of and optimized to ensure that you have all the logistical elements involved in your buying decisions are well covered in that process. We've also been hearing there's a great need to have more collaborative interfaces with our vendors, especially on the produce or the fresh side or the commodity side. We need to be in a much more dynamic relationship with our suppliers. So the building of a retailer-sponsored marketplace that ultimately allows all of your suppliers to come into that marketplace and connect with your buyers in a much more collaborative way, where you can do bi-directional deal making. And then ultimately invite your suppliers in to participate inside of your marketplace. And that will then ensure that you're getting the greatest opportunity for deals. New opportunities are coming up all the time. You're not going to worry about whether you missed it or not. And that deal marketplace will definitely help improve that collaboration with your vendors. And then finally, we're going to connect it all together and then show you how that store orders that are being generated today will be augmented with these decisions that are made at the enterprise level, so that we are taking, again, all of that inventory in view, auto-allocating our needs to the stores respectively, and then ultimately dealing with any inventory redistribution that you may have to encounter, because we might find that product might be not properly allocated in the stores after they've been delivered. So creating opportunities for you to know how you might want to reallocate that inventory are going to be suggestions that we're going to be delivering at this level as well. So we're going to break up our solution around these 5 core modules, and then ultimately we're going to be delivering these at the level that we're talking about here. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is just bring Martin up here to go and actually share a much more deeper dive of our vision of how the user experience will be. We're going to focus on the demand planning part of the solution, so that we give you a little bit of understanding of how we're looking at it from this point of view, and then hopefully we'll open up to some Q&A.
Thank you, Joe. So I think this is a really exciting project. As I mentioned in my opening, I was part of a startup called Why Waste. And I was very excited when we implemented our first interfaces. And I have to say that this is the first time in 8 years that I've gotten that feeling in my body again, that we're working on something consequential here that can actually make a big difference. So, as Joe said, we don't shy away from complexity. We embrace complexity. But from a platform experience perspective, what we want to try to do is hide away as much of that complexity as possible. So our goal is to make the user interface as little user interface as possible, so that you get to focus on exactly what you need to be focusing on at the time that you need to be doing it. So before we even look at the UI, I'm going to just talk about some concepts that we are hiding away. So if we just start with product ranging. So if you're going to replenish products, not all products are relevant to replenish all the time. It'll be based on when products become active. If you have seasonal items, which periods are they in? Are they ranged for stores? And so here we see an example where we have target week 17, and there are just certain items that are not, you don't need to replenish for those that week. So what we'll do is basically just hide it away, so you don't need to worry about those products. And of course, if there's a bigger chain where you have multiple DCs, ranging happen on a DC level. So you have the stores that are getting their supplies from various DCs. If they're ranged to the store, or if they're in particular not ranged, they're just not going to be part of the interface as you're working for that particular target week. Same thing goes for how do we divide the work between different buyers. And here we're going to introduce this concept scoping, where you have clearly defined scopes that don't overlap, where you can assign responsibility to individual users. But here we want to also make it very easy for you to cover for a colleague. So that's one of the things that is going to be a beauty of this, because we hear when we talk with our colleagues and the industry that a lot of the time as a buyer, I'm covering for another buyer. So it's really that, getting that brain drain that Joe keeps talking about, and being able to assign scope so that it's clear who is responsible for what. And I think the same thing goes here. In a wider solution or a wider chain, you'd want to be able to scope by DC or even other location hierarchies. So this is just another way of showing that that's perfectly possible. So let's dive into the UI. There are a few more concepts. So target week. This is the week when the store should receive the products. Okay, so that's what we call target week. And then for each target week, we're going to have one base scenario that will be a default. So that's going to be for the entire week. I'm kind of talking about the document structure on top of the forecasts, right? So we have the forecast coming in. There's a document structure that we need to establish so that we can work with it and make changes to it and have those changes recorded so we can come back to them and understand what's happening. So we're going to build out one scenario that's going to be the base scenario. And in the most cases, you don't have to do anything with this. You just go in and revise whatever's gotten in from the demand, the forecasting, and basically see if there are any exceptions that you need to deal with. But most of the time, it's just going to be business as usual. Just go in, confirm. But as Joe mentioned, their retail is full of black swans, where we need to act on things that are not part of the scope of a forecasting engine. So in order to be able to deal with them, we envision that you work with scenarios that can be rolled up to kind of consolidate the work that multiple buyers might do for the same type of scenario. So avian flu, kickoff of barbecue season. There's no forecasting engine that will know when you intend to start the barbecue season. So we make a plan for that, and we can have the buyers kind of populate the products that are in their scope. Then from target week, we can, all products have a lead time, which means that different products will have to be planned in different weeks in order to accommodate a target week. So these are the key concepts that we kind of use to hide away stuff. So now if we get into the UI, this is what it looks like for me when I come in as a buyer, and I'm going to do demand plans on Monday morning. So I'm in the plan